Lighthouse, for those not familiar with us, we've been in business since 1995. We're headquartered just outside of Providence, Rhode Island. We have about 200 here in the northeast of the U.S. for about 23 years, since 1995. We've been a growing organization based on our real technical expertise. Our consultants have on average of 20 plus years consulting, really focused on getting certifications and focused on research and development. Red Hat, for example, took notice of that and tapped us as one of their premier partners, one of their Apex partners, which is a premier partnership program which requires us as partners to get a certain number of certifications and accreditations and convince Red Hat that we're investing in the business with events like today. So again, appreciate everybody joining. Lighthouse, very customer-focused company. We're 100% dedicated to our customer success. I think a very telling percentage over here on the left-hand side of the screen, if you could see it, is that since we were in business in 1995, over 65% of those are still our clients today. I think that really speaks to the number of repeat engagements and the amount of satisfaction that we give our clients when we have engagements. Now, back in December of 2018, we were acquired by Converge Technology Solutions. Converge Technology Solutions headquartered out of Toronto, and what Converge is focused on is becoming the leading North American hybrid IT solutions provider, selling hardware, software, managed services solutions to our clients. We've had 8 acquisitions to date. Lighthouse was the 7th back in December of 2008. We're growing rapidly. As you can see here, from 2018 revenue run rate is $700 million company. Our target with additional acquisitions and growing organically by the end of 2021 is to be a $3 billion company. Again, a hybrid IT solution for Lighthouse has historically been focused in the Northeast and New England region, as I touched on at the beginning here, but now as part of the Converge Technology Solutions company, we have a national footprint, and really what that gives us is broader reach to help you guys, our clients, better. We have 90-plus engineers, almost 600 employees across the U.S. and Canada, broader geographical reach for us, and more technical competencies to bring to our clients. What those technical competencies are and how we help our clients is through various offerings here around cloud services, disaster recovery and redundancy centers, hardware and software solutions, and managed services. The key areas that we focus on are cognitive, cybersecurity, digital infrastructure, so your digital transformation, blockchain and user experience, talent solutions, providing staffing and recruiting for our clients, and what my team leads is the cloud organization. We're focused on public cloud, private cloud, managed services, and DevOps. We're going to get into some of those topics today with the topics around and DevOps, specifically automation and how we're helping clients automate their Azure operations with Ansible Tower and some of the success we're seeing with Ansible Tower. Now, again, the presenter today is Joe Roberts. Joe, the architecture technical community here around hybrid cloud and site reliability engineering for Lighthouse. He has a team of consultants that work for him, and what Joe and his team are focused on are guiding our clients through DevOps initiatives, both public and private clouds, and that includes the planning and the technical design and support of those initiatives. Joe's the Lighthouse for the startup community. He's worked in several successful high-growth startups, most recently Carbon Black and Salsify. He brings a strong background in site reliability engineering and automation, comes from an infrastructure background as well, where he spent the beginning portions of his career at EMC. With that, I know, again, we were a few minutes late. I appreciate the patience today. I'm going to turn it over to Joe to talk through Ansible and how we help automate Azure operations. Joe, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Andrew. So As Andrew said, thank you very much for being patient with us through some of the technical issues that we've been experiencing. The main benefit or the focus of today obviously is going to be around automation. And at Lighthouse, we feel strongly that automation plays a key role in getting into the market. A few years ago, we would find we experience situations, especially if you've been in infrastructure operations or in those type of roles, where developers would develop code in silos and didn't have transparency, visibility as to what was going on in operations, and operations folks felt that the code that was being delivered to them was defective and didn't match the expectations that were being set by overall operational needs or regulations that they had to follow. So there was a lack of transparency. And in addition to that, operations teams tend to treat their systems as, precious pets. Reason for that is once you got it working, you didn't want to change it. And what you ended up is with a relationship where neither side really was sure what was going on. The end result was a very complicated, cobbled, fragile mess in a lot of finger pointing. To summarize that, it's just misery, right? You have this really great hardware and fantastic code, but it more often than not ended up breaking. In comes tools and DevOps, and that really, this is, for me, it started changing about 2007, 2008. And for those of you that don't know about Ansible, Ansible is created by Michael Dehan. I'm sure I'm butchering his name. I always do it. Who used to work for the office CTO at Red Hat. In 2012, February, Ansible became an official project, and in 2015, February of 2015, it was acquired by Red Hat as well. When Red Hat acquired Ansible, they made the promise to open source their at the time their enterprise product, which is Ansible Tower. And they followed through with that in September of 2017, calling the project Ansible AWX. So what is Ansible? Ansible is this vibrant open source automation platform. It's based on an active community project. There's over 3,000 contributors, 11,000 forks, and over 250,000 downloads a month. Ansible is a simple, easily installed, and it's human readable, unlike some of the other configuration and orchestration management systems that are out there. It was designed to work the way that you think. It executes tasks in order and altogether. It's a powerful platform where you can use it to model your IT workflows. And it can manage things like infrastructure, operating system, networks, services. It can deploy application and manage multi-tier orchestration. The thing that made Ansible different at the time is that it was agentless. It leveraged RM to communicate with the host. From my perspective, the reason why I was drawn to Ansible was because there was no need to deploy an additional agent that was A, taking up resources on my systems, and B, I didn't have to worry about third-party software that opened a communication channel to my servers, which I then had to maintain and update along with everything else. There are three fundamental components to Ansible. There's the automation language, also known as playbooks. There's Ansible engine, which is the code base that is used to manage and orchestrate the infrastructure. And then there's Ansible Tower, which is the framework that is used to secure, manage, and the Ansible automation, as well as it provides a UI and a RESTful API. So, Ansible core or Ansible engine. It is just driven with additional interface. Ansible supports Windows, Linux, Unix, and all, pretty much all major OS variants, along with physical, virtual infrastructure, public cloud, network appliances, storage. So it's really an automation language or an orchestration language for all the things of IT. With Ansible, Ansible is really strong, and the community promotes using the infrastructure as code and applying software development lifecycle workflows to the way that you manage infrastructure and application environments, which in turn results in faster, more resilient, and reliable configuration and deployment of both infrastructure. And then at the end of the day, where we see a lot of success with our customers is with Ansible as an orchestrator that plays well with others. We've worked with customers that already have other automation tools or orchestration tools to automate different pieces of their infrastructure, but it doesn't do it all. Ansible is able to thread the needle across many different tools, and it does it in a way that is non-invasive. So I just want to cover at a high level some of the key components of Ansible. So as we go through, we are able to level set. So Ansible has a concept of an inventory. It's composed of hosts and groups of hosts, and the associated metadata that Ansible needs to automate. Inventory files can be static, or they can be dynamically generated from an external script or source. That is the same thing for both Ansible Engine and Ansible Tower. Ansible has a concept of plays, which is where you define target inventory host and list of tasks which are executed sequentially, and they're expressed in YAML, which is a human-readable markup language. Each play has tasks, which are modules that perform a separate unit of work, and a collection of plays is referred to as a playbook. There's also another concept of roles, but it is the way and how you can contain closely related Ansible content, playbooks, templates, and such, and organize it in a pretty fine way that the community accepts, and then share them in a repository which Red Hat supports called Ansible Galaxy. So if you're looking to do a particular automation or an orchestration task, more than likely the community has already started doing that work or has already done the work and vetted it out for you. There's no sense in you starting to reinvent the wheel. What I always do is when I'm starting a project and it's something that I don't already have in my toolbox, I go check out Ansible Galaxy. And then there's the concept of modules. And modules is execute on the host and do the majority of the work. They're essentially an abstraction to separate users from the underlying work that's being done in order for those plays that you've already defined in your playbooks to be defined. And then plugins, we really don't do a lot of work with that. Plugins are kind of the gears that turn the engine for Ansible. The most commonly used plugin that everybody uses is the connection plugin, which defines how Ansible is going to connect to the different hosts, whether that is over SSH, WinRM, or for networking gear, how those are executed. Sorry, folks. So as you can see, Ansible has included system or platform or orchestration tool or however you want to call it. Out of the box, you get all of these modules and then some, right? I realized as I was typing this list that I probably should go back and update it because the community and Red Hat is consistently adding modules to automate things. And Red Hat works in conjunction with a lot of these vendors, you know, like VMware, like Cisco, like F5, Juniper, Palo Alto, Google, and AWS, and Azure to ensure that the modules that are being delivered and updated are up to date and will work for the automations that you want to do. Real quick, the anatomy of a playbook. You have the when you write a playbook, you define the hosts, which can either be a group or individual hosts. You can define the type of connection that you're going to use. This is useful when you're dealing with Windows to define WinRM, so it doesn't have to guess. And depending on how you've configured WinRM, you can define the port if you're not using an SSL connection, which is where it defaults. In an environment, in an inventory file, you have the ability to define variables that are specific to that. There's actually a couple of different places where you can define variables, and I'll go through that and show that in Ansible Tower because it will matter in how templatable and reusable those templates are within Tower. And lastly, or not lastly, but I just wanted to reiterate, Ansible is not just for the operations team. We at Lighthouse have successfully deployed and evangelized Ansible for all these different types of organizations. There's Ansible, specifically with Ansible Tower, there's a strong play with self-service IP, and I will go through that and show the benefit with that as well. But you are able to deploy this for development, self-provisioning of infrastructure and resources. You can automate and even automate that further some of the work that Jenkins would be doing or similar tools, so on and so forth. And as I said before, Ansible Tower brings a couple of things to the table. It brings role-based access controls for security. It gives you the ability to schedule tasks and centralize jobs. It provides visibility and compliance and delegation. For those that haven't used it yet, Ansible Tower, the benefit here is that in the past, before Tower was around or AWS, what you would have is you would have different individuals running Ansible and who ran a playbook against what and when. that was particularly hard when you had change controls that you had to maintain and respect within your organization. Ansible Tower is a Django application. Unfortunately, for Windows folks, it only runs on Linux, and it is a self-hosted at the moment. There's no hosted version. For those of you that are looking at containerizing your applications as much as possible, it does run and can be scaled with OpenShift. And like I said before, it's derived from the open source AWX project. If you're looking to run Tower, you're going to need either RHEL 7.4 and above, or CentOS, Ubuntu 16.04 LTS, or later. It is recommended that you we find that it performs best around 8, and you need at least 20 gigabytes of hard drive space. Like I said before, provides a powerful and UI and RESTful API. Role-based access controls where non-privileged users can safely deploy applications with ease of a button, and job scheduling. At every Red Hat event that I've been at, there's some imagery or comment of people saying, you know, I know you're not going to believe this, but Red Hat works really well with Windows. And before I started working directly with Red Hat, I probably would have also kind of given. I saw these two logos together, but the reality is that there's very strong collaboration between Red Hat and Microsoft, and you can see that in the way that Ansible has been implemented. So I mentioned earlier that Red Hat was Ansible in 2015, around the same time, I believe, and I might end up standing corrected here, but Ansible actually also started coming up with from the beginning, actually, with Windows automations and modules. At this time, there's over 70 Windows-specific modules to carry out automation of the PowerShell desired configuration resources, or DSC, that are available within Ansible as a first-class citizen. So there's a ton of resources. This is in a situation where you're looking at, you know, 1 or 2 systems, and with every release of Ansible, you're getting more and more of these modules as you move forward. Real quick, because I know we're running a little short on time here. In order to run Ansible and Windows, you need at least PowerShell 3.1, and you need to be on Windows 7 in 2008. Out of the box, you need to configure WinRM for secure configurations. I've seen a lot of folks make mistakes and try to do the configurations by hand. And go to the Windows requirements, and there is a PowerShell script that you can download and run with a couple of different flags to create certificates if you don't already have them set up, and a few other options that'll make the configuration of WinRM so that it can work with Ansible a breeze. Ansible is extendable via .NET, and that is because all the modules for Windows are written in PowerShell. There is strong support for Windows Chocolatey for deploying and managing applications. We have seen in our experience that installing packages in Windows can sometimes be a bit of a headache due the ability for them to be installed in a silent mode or from command line. What we suggest is either repackaging those with an MSI or finding an alternative way to deploy them. Reboots are supported. You can install. There's great support for IIS for creating websites and application pools or virtual directories. Windows updates are also well supported. I will say that from time to time, you will run into some errors with Windows updates. That's due to security. That you can't execute certain updates over WinRM. There is a well-documented workaround for that. If you are running into these types of issues, please reach out on how to deal with those particular issues. And then, like I said, making registry bulk changes are also an excellent solution. And then when Ansible and Azure, there's a bit more than 18 modules at this point. I probably should have updated the slide. From my personal experience, Ansible does a really good job at staying on top of new features and releases from cloud providers, specifically Azure. However, if you're finding yourself that you're getting stuck because there's a feature that was released or it's not currently supported by a module and you don't want to wait till the next version of Ansible, you can certainly drive ARM templates within Ansible Tower in order to get that, in order to continue to in that overall strategy. And like I said, the Azure RM deployment, which you can use to deploy systems in Azure, can already supports function apps, logic apps, and Cosmo DB and new services. One thing that I want to note is that I don't see a lot of people using is that if you want to deploy Ansible and you're just kind of playing around with it, you're able to use not the Azure CLI, but within the Azure Web Console, you can actually install Ansible if you run it within Bash, and actually run Ansible commands within a resource group, as long as you have the permissions to be able to execute that. I find that to be super helpful, and we've started delivering a lot of our Ansible. Okay, so the first thing you'll notice when you go into Tower is that it provides you a heads-up display dashboard type solution. So you can see what were the recent jobs that were run, what were the status that we intended to go back and fix. We'll start with projects. I'm going to walk you through, at this point, through what the core components of Ansible Tower are. Projects is where you define your GitHub repository and you provide credentials for the project that you want, where you want to pull your code. It is important that you do not treat the Ansible Tower server as a source of truth. It's really meant that code, the YAML files, or any roles you're building should really be checked into source control. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as that it is SVN, Mercurial, or Git. Within the project, you have the ability to set permissions and see who can actually view a project, who actually has the ability to change it, and the ability to execute against it. You also have the ability to set down a schedule. One of the things that I want to point out that's very important, and I don't see a lot of folks do this, in order for you to have that additional layer of accountability and prevent changes from administrators that might have local access to the Ansible Tower server and could go in and modify a playbook to do something nefarious, is to update the revision every time you try to launch or leverage the playbooks. You also have another ability, which is to update the project on its schedule, right? Excuse me. The credentials is another thing that we wanted to touch upon. Again, these are resources that can also be granularly controlled. Credentials are stored within Ansible in encrypted format. Once they're entered in there, they're never displayed back to the user, regardless of whether you're an administrator or not. The only thing that you can do is change the secret that you're storing there. Another thing that's important to note is that if you wanted to use Azure Key Vault to store your secrets instead of using the local Ansible secret store, you are able to define that as a secret repository such as CyberArk or HashiCorp Vault, if that's the direction that you want to go in. Inventories is where you define the hosts that you're going to be in. So I mentioned earlier that you have the ability to set up a static inventory where you would come in here and you would define the host that you want. You're able to tag them and call upon and to group them into single, or like we did in Azure, and this plays really well with systems that you're able to dynamically call. You are able to define them as a dynamic group within the source and update them, right? So as you add more hosts, they will automatically by categories, which you're also able to configure. What's important in order for you to do that is you need to define a special credential within Ansible. You need to make sure that you're using the Microsoft Azure Resource Manager credential type, and that you're able to provide some of the subscription ID, the client ID, and the tenant ID. Don't worry, guys, it's all going to get changed as soon as this demo is over. So for those of you that are typing away trying to copy it, don't bother. And once you have that, you're able to update it. They also make it pretty clear if it's not able to contact or update the repository, and it'll tell you that there's a failure, and you can actually show up. It'll actually show up as a job where you can go up. So let's see. Yeah, there we go. So there was a job yesterday. My license had expired, and it was refusing to update, obviously, or subscription, I should say, had expired. So I needed to go and update my subscription license. So jobs are a ledger of all the jobs and templates you tried running within Ansible Tower. It really shows you just a status, whether it's running, active, failed. Is where you actually describe the things that are that you want to run. Forgive me, it's running right now. There we go. So let's take a create app stack job. This is a template that goes ahead and creates a SQL Server path in Azure. It creates an app stack within Azure. Here you're able to label the application, tell the type of job that it's going to be, what inventory it's going to use, where it's going to pull the source code from, and then the playbook that you're going to run. So as you can see, and as I add playbooks, I can come in here and update it. You're also able to define the different groups and even define whether or not the playbook has the ability to get privilege escalation. Excuse me. This is one of the places where you could set up extra variables or variables that are specific to the playbook. In addition to that, if you want it every time the template to be executed to ask a user questions for self-service IT, instead of defining the extra variable, you can just define it here in this section. And this is what's important. This is the variable that you're going to call out in your playbook here. So this name has to match whatever you're setting up in your playbook. And every time this launches, it'll prompt you. If you're going to use a secret, just make sure that you're able to, that you mark it as a password so that it's encrypted and it is not shown back in the logs or displayed back to an administrator via the API. Lastly, I just wanted to cover users and RBAC controls. There are, as I mentioned earlier, 4 types of users within Ansible Tower. There is a normal user that has read-write, an auditor that has read-only, and then a systems administrator that actually has permissions to view all projects and all things across organizations. So a normal user has a read-write within an organization. A user can belong to multiple organizations and be for example, you'll see here that we gave Andrew permissions to only a default organization. But if you go to my non-administrative, no, that's not it. Sorry. Demo gods are not with me today. Well, what I was trying to illustrate here is you can add a user to different teams, and those teams can span across organizations and can have different permission types. I think that is about all the time that we have. I apologize. We did additional video snippets to actually walk you guys through the demos of deploying PaaS services in Azure using Ansible Tower, as well as services, how to run Windows Update and install, and how to get around some of the Windows Update issues that I talked about. And we will share those with you as well as share the GitHub repository where we have all the playbooks for those so you guys can go through them and try them out as well. I really appreciate your time, and thank you very much. And I'll pass this back to Andrew.
Thank you, Joe. So thanks again, everybody. Appreciate everyone's patience as we dealt through audio issues. We're going to send out a recording. And as Joe said, the additional demos that we wanted to show, we'll send out some video snippets to the distribution list. Recording, and that concludes our webinar today of automating Azure operations with the Ansible Tower. Hopefully you all were able to pick up something new. Joe's very knowledgeable on the topic and clearly passionate about it. So thank you again, and have a great day.